Section 28. Protect the buyer, protect the transaction, protect your license. Several weeks after Ashley called Daniel about the water intrusion, Daniel sits down with Michael for their regular transaction review. Ashley's situation has been referred to the appropriate professionals. Daniel's file documents the disclosures and investigations that occurred during the purchase, and there is nothing more Daniel should personally diagnose or legally determine. Michael closes the file and asks Daniel a simple question. What did Ashley's transaction teach you? Daniel laughs. How much time do you have? Think about that question for yourself. We've followed Ashley from the moment she first considered buying a home, all the way through financing, property selection, the purchase offer, counteroffers, earnest money, escrow, title, disclosures, inspections, the BINSR, appraisal, closing costs, underwriting, final walkthrough, recording, possession, and even a post-closing concern. At almost every stage, something could have gone wrong. Yet the most dangerous problems were rarely complicated legal theories. They were usually small decisions, an unanswered email, an assumption, a missed deadline, a vague repair request, a disclosure somebody minimized, an agent speaking outside their expertise, a buyer opening new credit, a document that wasn't reviewed, a wire instruction that wasn't verified, a conversation that wasn't documented. Michael tells Daniel that's why risk management isn't something you do when there's a problem. It's how you practice real estate every day. That is one of the most important lessons in this entire course. Good risk management begins before the problem exists. Imagine you're representing the buyer and the listing agent tells you, "Don't worry about that roof stain. The seller already fixed it." What should happen in your mind? Not panic, not accusation, a question. Do we need more information? Imagine the title commitment identifies an easement you don't understand. Do we need more information? The inspector recommends a structural evaluation. Do we need more information? The lender says the buyer's loan status has changed. Do we need more information? The seller's BINSR response is unclear. Do we need more information? The buyer says, "I'm going to wire my money using the new instructions I just received by email." Now the answer is easy. Stop and verify. Experienced agents develop what I call the professional pause. When something doesn't make sense, you don't rush through it because everyone wants to close. You stop, you investigate, you communicate, and when necessary, you call your broker. Michael reminds Daniel of the 4 words that have followed us throughout Ashley's journey. Document, verify, disclose, communicate. Let's bring those words together one final time before our closing section. Document the transaction as it happens. If Ashley instructs Daniel to submit a particular offer, document it. If she makes an inspection decision, preserve the applicable documentation. If important information is delivered, maintain the appropriate transaction record. If something significant happens by telephone, consider whether the file should reflect the substance of that conversation under brokerage procedures. Verify information that matters to the buyer's decision. Don't repeat MLS remarks as though they are guarantees. Don't assume zoning because the neighbor did something similar. Don't assume the property has sewer service because somebody said it does. Don't assume a repair was completed because the seller says, "We're good." Help the buyer identify reliable sources. Disclose when Arizona law and the commissioner's rules require. A commission is never worth hiding material information. If you're uncertain whether information creates a disclosure obligation, don't solve the uncertainty by remaining silent. Involve your broker and obtain appropriate guidance. And communicate. Tell the client what they need to know while there is still time for the information to matter. Here's where many agents get into trouble. They confuse protecting the transaction with protecting the client. Those are not always the same thing. Suppose Tom finds a serious issue during Ashley's inspection. An agent focused only on the transaction thinks, "How do I keep Ashley from canceling?" An agent focused on the client thinks, "How do I make sure Ashley understands what was discovered so she can decide whether she wants to continue?" That's the difference. Your job isn't to save every transaction. Your job is to represent the client competently and lawfully. Sometimes, excellent representation results in closing. Sometimes, excellent representation results in renegotiation. And yes, sometimes excellent representation results in the buyer deciding not to purchase the property when the contract provides a lawful opportunity to do so. Losing a commission can hurt. Helping a client avoid a transaction they no longer want after receiving material information is not a professional failure. Michael looks at Daniel and says, "Do you know what scares me more than an agent who calls me with a problem?" Daniel shakes his head. "An agent who had a problem 3 weeks ago and never called me." Every managing broker understands that sentence. Agents sometimes avoid calling their broker because they think asking for help makes them look inexperienced. Usually the opposite is true. Recognizing when an issue exceeds your experience is part of professional judgment. A potential disclosure dispute? Call the broker. A missed contractual deadline? Call the broker. A disagreement concerning earnest money? Call the broker. A fair housing concern? Call the broker. A client asking you to conceal something? Definitely call the broker. A situation where you find yourself saying, "I'm pretty sure this is okay," that may be your signal. Professional judgment includes knowing when to ask for help. Daniel looks at Ashley's closed transaction file one final time. He remembers the first day she said, "Can we please go look at houses now?" Back then, he thought the difficult part of buyer representation would be finding the right property. Now he knows better. Finding the house was only one small part of the journey. The real work was helping Ashley understand what she was buying, what she was signing, what information mattered, what needed investigation, what deadlines controlled her rights, and what decisions belonged to her. Michael closes the file. "One more question, Daniel." "What's that?" "If you had a brand new Arizona agent sitting here tomorrow, what would you tell them about representing their first buyer?" Daniel thinks for a moment. His answer will take us into the final section of this course. Because after everything Ashley experienced, we're ready to answer the biggest question of all. What does excellent Arizona buyer representation actually look like from beginning to end? Online discussion 1. What is the professional pause, and why is it important in buyer representation? Answer. The professional pause means slowing down when information is unclear, inconsistent, unexpected, or potentially important to the buyer's decision. Instead of guessing or rushing toward closing, the agent identifies what needs investigation, verification, disclosure, communication, or broker involvement. This reduces the risk of making decisions based on assumptions. What is the difference between protecting the transaction and protecting the client? Answer. Protecting the transaction focuses primarily on getting the deal closed. Protecting the client focuses on helping the buyer receive material information, understand contractual rights and risks, complete appropriate investigations, and make informed decisions. Competent representation may result in closing, renegotiation, or, when contractually permitted, a buyer deciding not to proceed. Why should an agent involve the managing or designated broker when an unfamiliar problem develops? Answer. Broker involvement can provide supervision, experience, additional review, and guidance concerning Arizona law, commissioner's rules, brokerage procedures, and contractual issues. Asking for help before a problem grows is an important risk management practice and can help protect the client, brokerage, and licensee.